Welcome to your final financial stop, where today we're going to be talking about debit cards, how you can take advantage of them, what they're used for, and how they work. Debit cards are vastly different from credit cards, so stick around and find out how you can make and save more. Please subscribe to the channel if you learned anything at all, or if you like the content, share it with some friends. It would mean a lot to me, especially if you went over to my Patreon and subscribe to that as well. Understand how you can take this information we learn and utilize it and put it to use in the real world. Before we get started, I want to say this is not financial advice. Do not substitute any of this information as what you would receive from a professional financial advisor. Understand that each investment has its own risk and you can lose a lot or you can gain a lot. So please do your own research and have fun and stay safe. So what are debit cards, how many are there, and what are the major contributors? A debit card is a payment card that deducts money from a personal checking account whose balance is based upon previous deposits. ATMs are convenient to use, especially with cash withdrawals, but fees can be pricey, especially if it's an out-of-network ATM. Some debit cards are provided within signing up for an account, so you have the ability to own as many debit cards as you'd like. Each bank has structured its payment system with a particular company, and the major corporations running this type of industry include Visa, MasterCard, Discover, American Express, and UnionPay. There are a lot of different types of debit cards, but they all primarily function the same. Check cards are debit cards. They receive monthly payment statements that you do not have to pay because debit cards are instantaneous, and they do not build credit history because you're not using your credit line. EMV cards are an upgrade in security as far as the card goes. It now has a chip within it that you insert and type in a PIN to secure your transactions. ATM cards, or PIN-only cards, can only be used at ATMs. They're less popular and banks don't push them as much because they don't make as much revenue from the transaction fees. Prepaid cards are not connected to a checking account. There's no banking history required, therefore it's a replacement checking account. You load the card up and then you spend it and then you can load it up again, but be careful because the fees can be pricey, especially within loading them up with foreign transaction fees, merchant fees, and much more. The fees are not reported, but in most cases the payment statements are reported to credit bureaus, and this is one of the few ways that you can build your credit while using a debit card. And lastly, gift cards aren't necessarily debit cards, however, they fall into the same realm of loading them up and then spending them when there's no further balance. So back to fees. How to avoid them? Well, there's withdrawing cash from an out-of-network ATM. The best way to avoid this fee is to just use an ATM provided by your bank. On the back of your debit card, you should see a bunch of symbols. A lot of them will represent the ATMs that your card can be used at. Make sure you're not getting charged though. These fees can go up to about $5. There are insufficient funds charges or overdraft charges if you signed up for the protection. The best way to avoid this is to use a higher balance card or a higher lined credit card. There's a replacement card fee if it's lost or stolen. Best way to avoid this is to not lose your card or use a digital wallet on smartphones. There are foreign transaction fees and it's very difficult to avoid these. However, some cards offer perks that you can take advantage of in order to avoid them. PIN-based transactions cost the merchant more. Signature-based transactions are typically credit cards or using your debit card as a credit card. Usually the advantage to this is an extended grace period for that credit opportunity. So if something goes wrong, you might have a chance to dispute it. Lastly, debit cards are less secure than credit cards as far as fraud protection and prevention goes, leading to fees and liabilities. Credit cards offer fraud protection of up to $50 liability when you report it lost or stolen. Sometimes you don't pay anything. Debit cards demand $50 liability if your card is reported lost in about 2 days versus $500 within 60 days and unlimited liability after 60 days. Debit cards do not require an application, however credit cards do. Therefore, credit cards offer a little more risk because they have the opportunity of debt. So debit cards are better if you want to budget. Overall, credit cards simply have better rewards and virtually less risk than debit cards. However, some of the great things that come out of debit cards is occasionally you'll find a 15% cashback offer within a specific merchant. There's a chance for you to earn 1 to 2% cash back on your transactions using a debit card, although most of them require you to sign the transaction. Power is a great way for students to get back on their feet after acquiring a lot of student debt, as they have no foreign transaction fees or sufficient funds fees. You start off with 1% cash back on $1,000, and if you refer somebody, you get 2%. With debit cards, there are less fees and no interest charges, so it's easier to keep track of the money that you actually spend. And lastly, debit cards offer automatic withdrawals that offer no interest charges as well. However, temporary holds causing overdrafts or lost funds can really put a damper on your mood. This one particular time, I was at a gas station and I had $50 in my account. I paid $30 for gas, tried to buy some peanut M&Ms, and I had minus $50 in my account. That one debit card hold prevented me from buying my candy. Imagine what it could do to you in an emergency situation. When returning online purchases in 60 days, it's typically harder to sort things out with a debit card company, as it takes about 3 months for an investigation to even begin. Credit cards typically offer a refund within a week. It's harder for you to combat dining out and incorrect tips when using your debit card. There are typically no extended warranties on appliances bought with a debit card. However, some credit cards offer you that option. And lastly, if you do a balance transfer with a debit card, it comes with fees. In my opinion, the best place to use your debit card or cash is at the liquor store when they give you a discount on taxes, or at the gas station when they give you 10 cents off. That's when I wouldn't use a credit card. I would use a debit card with cash withdrawals. Credit cards and cash withdrawals charge much higher interest rates than on your everyday loans. Because debit cards cannot have you go into debt for very long, you can manage your spending better. And the last time you would use a debit card is if it has rewards greater than what your credit card company would offer you. For instance, that 1 to 2% cash back offer is a real thing. However, there are 3 to 5% cashback offers with some credit cards, as well as flight advantages, hotel and car insurance benefits, and greater protection from fraud in general. And that just about wraps up our introduction to debit cards and what they are, how to understand what their pros and cons are, and when to use them and when to not use them. There are many things that you can get out of this information, especially with the rest of my channel. So please remember to subscribe to my Patreon if you want a further in-depth analysis on anything and everything we cover here on YouTube. Follow my Twitter and ask me questions. I'd love to respond and reply with my own personal opinions on what the market or what your topic will influence next. Please like, share, and subscribe to the video if you like the content or if you learned something today. Thanks for joining.